Good evening, fellow Bible studiers. We are here with our new Bible study tonight. We are officially out of the Purpose-Driven Life book by Warren, and we're starting a new Bible study. And today, I am going to talk to you. We're going to talk about the Good Samaritan. And to get a better understanding of the story, you will need to look at this picture right here as a reference to the story we're going to read. So there's the Good Samaritan helping out the Good Samaritan helping out the person who's weak and fallen along the road, who was left there that nobody would help. That picture will have its significance here in a moment. Alright. The parable in Luke 10:29-37 answers the sometimes difficult question, who is my neighbor? And speaking of Luke 10:29-37, as we're talking about the Good Samaritan, let's just open our Bibles to, or you can just listen to me, to Luke. And we will find Luke 10. 29-37, and we will read the story of the Good Samaritan before we get into the rest of the Bible study. But he, willingly to justify himself, said unto Jesus, And who is my neighbor? And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, which is his clothes and stuff, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at that place, came and looked on him, and passed on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatever thou sendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, The one that showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said unto him, Go and do likewise. So that was the story of the Good Samaritan. So your neighbor is everybody. Your neighbor is everybody. You're supposed to help everybody. You see them in need, they're all your brothers and sisters. They're all your neighbors. You just don't walk by and not help somebody. It doesn't, just because they're not your blood, they're not your family, they're not your friend, they're still your neighbor. They're still your brother and sister. They're still a child of God, which makes them your brother and your sister. And like you say, your neighbor, as you could also call them. So you're supposed to help everyone. In the parable, a man of a hated, oppressed minority stops to aid a member of another culture when no one from the injured man's own community would offer assistance. This parable can be read from a variety of perspectives, depending on the reader's particular context. When I looked at Stephen Sawyer's Good Samaritan, which is the picture I showed you guys a few minutes ago, I view the image in the context of the history of the United States of America. For me, the features of the men suggest an African American and a Euro-American whose cultural heritage has been shaped by the history of slavery and racism in the USA. Perhaps this is an important perspective for American readers to consider when reading this parable. I invite all readers now to consider who these men need be to bring this message of the parable to you. Then consider, do you see yourself as the victim or as the helper in this story? What would it be like to be the other character? Is it easier to be the noble Samaritan, overlooking race and status, to help someone who is in trouble, than it is to see yourself as the person who has been victimized and then ignored by his own? Does either role make you feel uncomfortable? Does one fit more easily? Why? Jesus spoke in parables to bring the hard questions home to his listeners. As we view the parable of the Good Samaritan through Sawyer's moving art, let's take the opportunity to re-examine our response to the question, who is my neighbor? And that was the section, that was our study on the Good Samaritan. So what it's trying to get you to do is think about it from our perspective as being here in America, you know, like it would have been for these people that were in Jerusalem and, you know, another country. All right? So let's say, like this is trying to say, it's talking about African Americans and white people, basically. Let's say the African American was the Good Samaritan and the white person was the person that was injured. Well, somebody, we don't know who, beat up this white person that was one of, you know, someone just like us and just like me, and they beat him up and they threw him alongside the road and they left him or her there to die. And all these other white people walked on by because they didn't want to help him. They didn't want to stop and help them. They thought they were too good, or they were too busy, or they didn't want to get involved. They didn't care. They just kept on walking by. But an African American comes and he feels compassion for this white person, whether not even seeing the color of his skin, saying, you're not one of my brothers, you're not black like me, you're not African American like me, so I don't care about you, you just lay there and die. Instead, he knows that whether you're African American or you're Caucasian, white, Asian, whatever, okay, he knows that whatever you are, we're still all children of God, so we are all brothers and sisters. We are all each other's neighbor, and he knew that, and he went and he helps the person that nobody else would help. And that's a person that God is going to be very proud of. Okay? Because that's how God wants us all to act. Treat each other like we are true brothers and sisters, because we are. And we need to help one another. And especially being based on skin color. That is the most ridiculous and stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. You know, when people say, what do you call me? You know, would you rather be called white or would you rather be called Caucasian? Would you rather be called a cracker? And the same thing with black people, with the names they call them, which I'm not going to say. When you ask me that, I say, call me Missy. That's my name. That's who I am. Why should it go based on color? Who cares what color you are? The color of your skin doesn't make your character. It doesn't make the person who you are. It doesn't shine through what's in your heart. And what's in your heart is all that matters. That's what matters to God, and that's all that's going to matter in the end, is how you felt in your heart and how much you loved and served others, and how much you loved and served others for God. And that's the only thing that's going to matter. So take this time tonight to think about the Good Samaritan, and think about if someone that wasn't in your race was in this situation, if you would help them the same way that the Good Samaritan helped this other man. Say you was visiting a foreign country and it happened there, and none of the people that lived there was helping the person, but you being a foreigner in that country, would you be willing to stop and help that person? Or would you just leave them lay there like the rest of the people in their own country would? And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with tonight, these thoughts on the Good Samaritan. So I hope you guys enjoyed our first new Bible study. And our next Bible study will be on, let's see, I'm not really sure. I think I'll surprise you guys. I'll go through here and surprise you guys because there's a bunch of different things. So I hope you guys enjoyed the good story of the Good Samaritan, and I hope it touched your guys' hearts. Let's bring those souls to Jesus, everyone. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Bye. God bless.